You don't need to shout to get attention. You don't need to argue to assert dominance. You don't need to act dangerous. You need to feel dangerous, quietly, invisibly, undeniably. The man who cannot be read cannot be controlled, and what cannot be controlled becomes feared. They want you loud. They want you emotional. They want you predictable, because predictable men are manageable, and manageable men are forgettable. But Machiavelli wrote something darker, something truer. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. And here's what he knew. Fear doesn't require threat. It requires confusion. It requires control. It requires you to become unreadable. This isn't about being aggressive. It's about being unchallenged. This isn't about being cold. It's about being untouchable. You want to terrify people? Not with fists, not with rage, but with presence. You walk into a room and everyone's energy adjusts, not because you said anything, but because they don't know what you'll do. They don't know what you think. They don't know how far you'll go. And that not knowing, that's the edge. That's what changes how they treat you. Not with fake respect, but with caution. This video isn't motivation. It's mental weaponry. It's cold psychology. It's ancient power codes rewritten for modern dominance. If you're ready to become unreadable, if you're ready to carry presence like a weapon, if you're ready to build a personality that terrifies without a word, then comment this now. I don't intimidate, I unsettle. Let's begin. Part 1. End the desire to be liked. They lied to you. They told you likability is strength, that if you're nice enough, polite enough, soft enough, you'll be respected. Wrong. Respect has nothing to do with kindness. It has everything to do with unpredictability. A man who needs to be liked is a man owned by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of disapproval, fear of being alone. So he bends, he shrinks, he edits himself to fit the room. But that bending is visible, that shrinking is sensed, and the moment they sense your hunger for approval, they own you. Machiavelli warned, men are driven by fear or gain, but those who fear nothing control everything. You walk into rooms trying to please. They walk into rooms trying to assess, how can I use him? How can I disarm him? You disarm yourself by trying to make them comfortable. Here's the shift. You don't soften your ambition. You sharpen your edge. You don't hope they accept you. You let them adjust to you. Power isn't in being embraced. It's in being misunderstood. Because when you no longer explain yourself, they start analyzing. And when they analyze, they hesitate. And when they hesitate, you lead. Comment this now if this shift is already happening. I don't seek approval. I signal presence. Part 2. See everything. React to nothing. Powerful people don't flinch. They observe and they wait. Weak men react. Strong men study. The moment you react emotionally, you've shown your hand. You've shown your buttons. And manipulators? They memorize them. Every reaction is a map, a manual, an invitation. And most people hand that manual out freely through arguments, outbursts, social media, oversharing. But the man who says nothing, the one who doesn't blink when provoked, that man is unreadable. And unreadable men are uncontrollable. You want to terrify people? Don't explode. Pause. Let them feel your stillness. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them stew in their own insecurity. Stillness isn't passive, it's calculated resistance. Machiavelli knew this. He wrote, "A prince must be a great dissembler, a great actor, a great pretender, because in politics, as in life, reaction is vulnerability." Think of the hawk. It doesn't screech. It doesn't chase. It circles silently. And when it strikes, there's no warning. That's who you become. Not loud, not volatile, but surgical. Let them talk. Let them test. Let them insult. You blink slower. You breathe deeper. You smile without warmth, because when your reaction is calm, they start to panic. Not because you're aggressive, but because they can't tell what comes next. And not knowing is what terrifies them. Practice the stare that says nothing. Practice the silence that drips with tension. Practice the pause before you answer. You're not trying to be mysterious. You are mysterious because your thoughts belong to you, not to the room, not to the moment. You are not a firecracker. You are a fault line, invisible until it shifts. And when it does, the room changes. Comment this now if you understand the new code. My stillness is strategy. Part 3. Charm without getting close. Charm isn't about being liked. It's about bending the room without asking for permission. True charm is cold, intentional, controlled. They mistake it for kindness, but it's not. You smiled, not because you like them, but because it made them wonder why. You complimented them once. They can't forget it. Why? Because it felt selective. It felt rare. It felt earned. That's what real charm is. Precision, not warmth. You make them feel seen, but never invited in. You engage, but never attach. You speak, but never bond. Why? Because closeness kills mystique. Let them feel your distance. Let them question their access to you. Let them earn more of you and never quite get it. It's not seduction. It's dominance through inaccessibility. The average man wants to be liked. The dangerous man, he wants to be remembered. When you say less, they fill in the blanks. When you disappear, they wait. When you return, they obsess. You didn't give them a story. You gave them a puzzle, and the mind hates unfinished puzzles. You weren't rude. You were selective. You weren't cold. You were controlled. And that's unforgettable. Comment this now if you feel the difference. I charm with silence, not smiles. Part 4. Master impulses. Move like a weapon. Most men are ruled by their urges. They speak when they're angry. They eat when they're anxious. They chase when they feel ignored. Every decision, an emotional reaction. Every action, predictable. But the man who controls his impulses, the man who delays gratification, who chooses discipline over comfort, becomes terrifying. Why? Because no one knows what he'll do next. Even in pressure, even in pain, even in chaos, he's not acting out of feeling, he's acting out of code. That's rare, and what's rare becomes respected, feared, followed. Machiavelli understood this. The wise man does it once, what the fool does at last. That's not timing, that's impulse control. You want presence? Start with discipline. You want power? Start by saying no. No to comfort. No to easy validation. No to emotional habits that make you common. Wake up earlier than you want to. Train when no one's watching. Stay silent when your ego wants to speak. Resist pleasure when your body craves escape. Because the man who masters himself becomes a mirror for the undisciplined, and people fear mirrors when they don't like what they see. Your goal isn't self-help. It's psychological warfare against your own urges, against the leash they've put on you. You want to terrify the world? Train yourself like a weapon. Quiet, sharp, precise. Your movements must feel calculated. Your choices must feel irreversible. Your presence must feel earned. When they see your restraint, they'll feel their lack of it. And that contrast is what creates tension. Comment this now if you're sharpening the edge. I move by choice, not craving. Part 5. Be polite. Stay emotionally unavailable. People expect emotion. They expect warmth. They expect social games. But when you give them only politeness, only formal civility, their scripts break. They tell a joke, you nod. They insult you, you smile. They brag, you blink. And in every reaction they expect, you give them nothing. That void? That's where dominance begins. See, politeness isn't weakness. It's a mask, a shield, a trap. You speak clean. You listen calmly. But behind the quiet courtesy is a locked fortress. They can't read you. They can't push you. They can't find the boundary to test. And that lack of access, it turns into anxiety. Did I offend him? Is he angry? What does he think of me? The mind spins. The heart races. They replay the conversation 100 times. That's control, and it costs you nothing. Machiavelli said, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. And that's how you win. By keeping your truth unavailable. So, smile. without warmth. Speak without revealing. Compliment without connection. Your tone, polite, measured, unshakable. Because when they can't interpret you, they start to project, they start to imagine. And imagination is a more powerful weapon than anything you say. From this point forward, be kind but unreadable. Be respectful but distant. Be present but disconnected. You don't let people in. You let them orbit, and they fear being cast out. Comment this now. If this is your weapon of choice, I'm polite but unreadable. Part 6. Let them sense you're dangerous. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to swing first. You don't need to brag, threaten, or intimidate. Danger doesn't announce itself. It lingers silently, patiently, unshakably. The most dangerous men don't speak of power. They let others feel it in their silence, in their restraint, in their lack of fear. When you walk into a room, they shouldn't know if you'll speak or walk away, if you'll smile or disappear, if you'll reward them or ruin them. Not through action, but through your unreadability. Machiavelli wrote, "It is unnecessary to display violence when fear has already been planted. You don't show the blade. You let them wonder where it's hidden. You don't escalate. You vanish. You don't argue. You observe. And in that distance, in that mystery, they begin to tread carefully, because the man who doesn't need to prove himself is the man they assume can destroy them. You carry yourself like peace, but not the soft kind, the kind forged in war, the kind that radiates. I've already seen the worst and chose control. That unsettles them. That silences rooms. That redefines every interaction. You don't demand fear, you become it. They don't fear what you'll do, they fear what they can't calculate. They fear the version of you they've never seen, but sense exists. You want real psychological dominance? Stop trying to be loved. Stop trying to be respected. Stop trying to be understood. Instead, be misread. Be misunderstood. Be feared for what's never said. Comment this now if you feel the shift already happening. They don't know what I'll do. That's the point. You've spent your life being clear, kind, approachable, and they've used it, mishandled it, tested it. That version of you ends now, because the man who terrifies people doesn't do it by changing the world around him. He does it by changing his response to it, internally, permanently. You don't need permission. You don't need explanation. You don't need to show them your strength. You walk, you move, you remain still, and everything around you bends slightly. That's power. That's presence. That's the new you. From now on, you don't explain yourself. You don't overexpose yourself. You don't react. You study. You don't chase validation. You command space. You've become something rarer than intimidating. You've become unreadable. And unreadable is untouchable. They won't say you've changed. They'll say, he's become someone else. Because you have. You've become the quiet edge in every room. The storm behind the still eyes. The one they speak carefully around. You don't chase power. You become it. Comment this now to lock in the transformation. I've become someone they can't control. If this resonated, it's not by accident. It's because something inside you has awakened or returned. You don't need another pep talk. You need reminders of who you are and who you've decided to become. So, like this, subscribe to this. Turn on notifications. Not to follow, but to remember. They'll never see you the same again. And that's the point.